All right, let's get into it, man. Welcome back to The Run with me, Manny Wilson. We got some news for The Run. Leave us a quick take on a voicemail line if you want to be involved. 219, what's that number? 219-413-9405. And then we'll play it back next episode. Of course, now, some news for The Run. I'm going to just go over some of the scores that happened week 2 in the NFL. And to kind of give you a breakdown of what's finishing up in week 2 of the NFL. We had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing the Houston Texans. As of right now, Buccaneers are leading that game 14-10. It's the third quarter. Chargers will play the Raiders later on tonight, so a doubleheader for Monday Night Football. Also, earlier on in week 2, we had the Green Bay Packers playing the Commanders. Packers, they beat down on the Commanders 27-18. And the Commanders, it's some issues and some talks about Jaden Daniels having some knee issues. So they might be looking at a backup quarterback. And I know that, hey, there is a quarterback out there. Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins, by the way. I'm not saying they got to go get him, but I'm just saying, give us a couple draft picks and some great players, and we got you, Kirk Cousins. But Packers, they were very dominant. I'm going to just leave it at that. Now the Atlanta Falcons, they defeated the Minnesota Vikings, as I said, 22-6 points. The Falcons won that game. Then the Bengals and the Jaguars played. Bengals won that game 31-27. Now, one thing you need to know about this game is Joe Burrow did go down again. He had turf toe, and I tried to explain it earlier, and I couldn't really do a good job. If you play, you know what turf toe is. If you didn't, you just gotta look it up and see exactly what it is. But Jake Browning stepped in for Joe Burrow, and he ended up finishing off the game. I ain't gonna say it was beautiful or nothing like that. Had some interceptions, but ultimately he got a win. So good for the Bengals. Cowboys, they beat the Giants in overtime 40-37. That was a great game. Rams, they beat the Titans 33-19. Patriots, they beat the Miami Dolphins 33-27. 49ers beat the Saints. The Bills, they beat the Jets 30-10. Seahawks, they beat the Steelers 31-17. Ravens, they beat the Browns. Mollywop, they smacked the Browns. Colts, they beat the Broncos by 1 point. Colts won 29-28, which was a crazy, crazy game. Cardinals, they ended up beating the Panthers. Eagles, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs 20-17. 2 times straight. They beat the Chiefs, obviously, in the Super Bowl, and then they just beat the Chiefs in the exhibition as well. And the last game here that everybody has to know about, man, the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. The Lions hung up 50 points on the Chicago Bears. To be exact, it was 52-21. And after the game, a lot of people was kind of wondering what would be said by the head coach of the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson, he responded to a question that was asked about, putting up 50 points on him. So they asked him if he thought Ben Johnson was trying to run up the score and all of that. And this was they asked him if Dan Campbell, head coach of the Lions, was trying to run up the score on Ben Johnson. And this is Ben Johnson's response to that question. Here it is.
Do you believe Dan Campbell ran it up on you on that 4th and 4 goal?
What's he supposed to do? It's 4th and goal. What do you want him to do? Yeah, he could have kicked the field goal. They don't kick field goals. They go for it there. So he was doing what he was supposed to do. That's what he does.
I love it, man. Now, I love it because that's brutally honest. And, I really think that if Ben Johnson was the one that was, in the lead a majority of the game and had the opportunity to run it up, I'm almost positive that Ben Johnson would have ran the score up just as much, if not worse. So with that being said, man, I'm looking at this game. Obviously, I'm very happy for the Lions that the Lions were able to turn it around, complete 360 from what we've seen on the offensive side of the ball compared to week 1. This offense looked fluid. This offense was free flowing. They had the big plays. You had the great catch from Tesla. You had a lot of big touchdowns. I mean, Jared Goff almost threw for 400 yards. He had 5 touchdowns. Both running backs had touchdowns. I mean, it was a touchdown fest for the Lions. And it was a party for the Detroit Lions. And then you transition to the Chicago Bears side of this. And, honestly, I'm beginning to think that it's not so much of an adjustment of, this Ben Johnson offense that he's installed with the Chicago Bears is so difficult. It's so complex where it's hard to adjust. And, they got to figure that out still and all of that. I understand that aspect of it. But for just a second here, I think we need to hold certain people accountable, man. I'm going to just say it like this, man. Caleb Williams, he's looking like he's not that guy. With Ben Johnson's offense, obviously we see the design of it is very, very great. A lot of guys are getting open. A lot of receivers are getting open. The run game sometimes works. The play calling is amazing still for the most part. But the thing that bothers me is, regardless of the excuse that anybody has for Caleb Williams, whether you say it's the coaching, the play call, whatever it is, the O-line, I don't care. It's not, it's absolutely inexcusable that Caleb Williams throws the ball inaccurately to these open targets. I don't care who you have as the offensive coordinator. I don't care who you have calling plays or constructing these plays. It will never work if your quarterback is not getting the ball from point A to point B accurately. Or even if it's not accurately, just getting the ball to point A to point B. If you can't do that, then you're not going to have a high success rate as a quarterback or just as an offense. And to me, obviously, I can't be the only one that sees this. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I'm not the only one that sees this, how nervous Caleb Williams is in the pocket. To me, it seems like Caleb Williams is overcomplicating the offense that Ben Johnson has. Like, he's overlooking some of his progressions. He's overlooking some of these open targets and choosing to either escape the pocket, go make a throw on the run, which he can do, but it's not necessary when you already have option 1 and 2 and 3 about to be open. So you got to let the plays develop. And yes, the O-line isn't perfect all the time, but I'm really starting to think, man, that Caleb Williams is the one that's making this a little more complicated. And for everybody out there who's like throwing the excuses and continuing to give excuse after excuse for Caleb Williams, you got to remember, man, like just take what you see from the film and just look at it. Try and look at it from a non-biased perspective. I know Caleb Williams has a lot of upside and he has a lot of potential in the future, but you got to remember too, this isn't Ben Johnson's guy. Ben Johnson didn't handpick Caleb Williams. He didn't say, I want this guy out of the draft with all these other great quarterbacks. He didn't handpick Caleb Williams. So now that he is learning his style a little bit, and I still think there is a lot of obviously room to grow for this Bears offense and these two learning each other, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. But I don't think any of it will work if Caleb Williams can't get the ball from point A to point B accurately. Like, it's nothing Ben Johnson can do about that. And yes, huge potential. Again, Caleb Williams got it. He can make these throws on a run and stuff like that. But when you overcomplicate something that's supposed to be simple, it ends in disaster. That's like saying, all right, I'm trying to fix a salad, but yet you start going and overlooking everything that you need. You start overshooting. You're like, instead of getting the lettuce out, you just start putting all the dressing on the plate. You just start, trying to chop up the veggies and all of that, and you ain't even put the lettuce on the plate. It's like you just start to overanalyze and just overshoot every single thing, and that's what I've been seeing from the Chicago Bears as of now. So I know it's still early, and there's a lot of things that can change from week 2 to week 14 and all of that. I get that, but as of right now, in week 2, what I'm seeing from Caleb Williams is not on anyone else outside of Caleb Williams. Yes, I know sometimes the O-line fails and they don't give him enough time. But even when the O-line gives Caleb Williams time, he still fails to get the open target. The first progression and the second progression. And he chooses to run out the pocket or take a sack. And it's like, okay, you had the options, but for some reason, it's just not clicking. It's not clicking. And I know it's early. It can change. It will change. I'm sure it will. But just considering here, maybe Caleb Williams ain't that guy. That's all I'm considering. I'm just proposing an idea. I think it's time we at least question it that maybe he's not that guy. That's it. That's all I'm saying, man. I ain't gonna harp on him. I want him to have a great, luxurious career with the Chicago Bears in the NFL. I want him to have a great career. But I'm just saying, maybe, just maybe, he's not that guy. Just maybe. That's it. Other than that, man, that's all I got for you guys. So I appreciate you for tuning in, kicking it, listening. And I'm going to leave you on a positive note. The positive note is just going to be to take care of yourself, man. Take care of yourself mentally, physically, whatever you got to do to make sure you feel okay mentally, physically, and spiritually. Just take care of yourself. So I'm going to leave it at that. Other than that, man, that's all I got for you. So I appreciate you for kicking it. Appreciate you for hanging with me. And then we'll be back later on this week, actually. Later on this week. And then so on and so on and so on.